Yes, there are rules,
and that's not one of them.
And there are rules. And when you're told to recuse yourself from investigations that you handle for the president, you're supposed to recuse yourself.
No, when I represented the president.
You've also said, you've also refused to release Volume 2 of the Special Counsel's report. That was an investigation into the Mar-a-Lago documents case. How is that not an abundant conflict of interest? Refusing to release to the public an investigative report of an investigation into your client.
I am not a judge. A federal judge.
No. The department's position under you, Mr. Blanche, was do not release the report.
In a Senate hearing, Senator Adam Schiff presses Attorney General Todd Blanche on conflicts of interest, recusals, and a tax settlement signed for the president. The questioning turns to whether that agreement shields Trump from liability on crypto earnings. Let's play this clip.
Mr. Blanche, you represented the president in at least three criminal cases, the hush money payment case in New York, the January 6th case, and the Mar-a-Lago classified documents case. You said when you appeared last before this committee, you would consult with ethics lawyers about that apparent conflict of interest in handling any case involving the president, having been his personal counsel. Did you consult with Joseph Terrell, a senior ethics lawyer at the department?
I believe I met with Mr. Terrell, yes.
Did Mr. Terrell tell you that ethics laws and policies required that you not be involved in cases involving your prior representation of the president?
Yes.
So in those three matters, the hush money payment case, January 6th case, Mar-a-Lago case, you were to recuse yourself.
I'm recused, correct. Well, by the way, the cases are not ongoing, Senator, but to the extent there's any work around those cases, yes, I'm recused.
Schiff opens by listing Blanche's prior representation of Trump in the hush money and Mar-a-Lago cases, then demands whether ethics advice required recusal. Blanche confirms he met with the ethics lawyer and agrees those cases required recusal because they involved his former client. The exchange establishes the core conflict. A former defense lawyer now running the Justice Department while decisions affect the same client.
It is. I wasn't involved.
So at CPAC, you're taking credit for the firing of these Department of Justice lawyers, but you're not willing to take responsibility before this committee. Is that the case?
No.
Okay.
There's a statement I gave at CPAC.
You were bragging about this at CPAC, the firing of these prosecutors, the firing of the FBI agents, the getting rid of everyone who investigated your client. You were proud of that, speaking for the Department of Justice, but you don't think that's a conflict of interest. You moved to vacate, I don't think you're going to deny involvement in this, you moved to vacate the convictions of 12 Proud Boys and Oath Keepers, which erased their convictions, restored their gun rights. These people were convicted in the January 6th investigation, which also involved the president, who you represented. You were involved in dismissing those cases, were you not?
Schiff accuses Blanche of taking credit for removing prosecutors who investigated Trump while denying any conflict. Blanche responds that he was not personally involved in the firings, but acknowledges that as acting attorney general, his department moved to dismiss cases against the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers.
Yes, there are rules,
and that's not one of them.
And there are rules, and when you're told to recuse yourself from investigations that you handle for the president, you're supposed to recuse yourself.
No, when I represented the president.
You have also said, you've also refused to release Volume 2 of the Special Counsel's report. That was an investigation into the Mar-a-Lago documents case. How is that not an abundant conflict of interest? Refusing to release to the public an investigative report of an investigation into your client.
I am not a judge. A federal judge.
No. The department's position under you.
The disagreement centers on whether institutional control over cases involving a former client creates an ethical problem even without direct personal action. Schiff presses on the decision not to release the special counsel's report on the Mar-a-Lago documents investigation.
You, Mr. Blanche, the department's position under you, Mr. Blanche, was do not release the report.
So that position...
If you went into court asking them to release it, it would be released by now. So how is that not a patent conflict of interest?
What you're saying happens to not be true. I did not do that. What you're talking about happened before I became the Deputy Attorney General. So you support the release of Volume 2? No, I don't, but I'm recused and had nothing to do with that case. Like, you can't accuse me of violating my ethical rules and then lie about what I did.
So you had nothing to do with the decision to prohibit the release of the report. You had nothing to do with the department's
position. I wasn't in court.
No, I'm not asking whether you were in court. I'm asking you whether anyone sought your opinion or used your guidance in refusing to release Volume 2.
When
You're saying you had nothing to do with that decision?
Litigation was ongoing, I was a private citizen, still representing the President of the United States. It was before March. Since March, to the extent there's been anything in front of that judge,
Mr. Blanche,
I haven't been part of it.
I asked you in your last confirmation hearing whether you would release the report, and your answer was no. Your answer was not, I will recuse myself. Your answer was, no, I will not release the report. That was your testimony last before this committee. You subsequently were advised by ethics lawyers not to be involved in these matters, but it appears you were involved in these matters. Let me ask you about another matter.
I wasn't involved. You can't say it appears I was involved, but I said I wasn't.
Let me ask you about another one you have your name on.
The truth has to matter at some point.
Yeah, it does matter. We just don't hear much of it from you. But let me ask you about another matter you have your name on. I don't think you can deny responsibility here, and that is the IRS settlement agreement. So you put your name on this. That absolves the president of tax liabilities in the past. The president was convicted in the case you represented him in of falsifying business records in part for tax purposes. Does this settlement not absolve the president of any liability for tax crimes associated with what he's already been convicted of?
That's not what he was convicted of. Not having to do with tax purposes.
I'm happy to read the statement of facts. The participants took steps that mischaracterized for tax purposes the true nature of the payments made in furtherance of the scheme. So you know, Mr. Blanche,
there was not the president. It was somebody else.
Well, if the president is conspiring with others to falsify business records to help them cheat on taxes, he is also exposed to liability. You know that as well as I do.
He can't be audited for that.
And of course he can be. Of course he can be. And he can be prosecuted for it. But the agreement you signed on behalf of your former client, on behalf of your current client, in a staggering example of self-dealing prohibits that. Let me ask you this. Does this tax agreement, this addendum you signed, also hold him harmless from any audit or tax liability with respect to the billions in crypto money he made in his first year as president?
It's not forward-looking. So to the extent there are taxes filed by the president or his sons or the Trump organization after the date of that agreement, there's no protection.
Well, but before that agreement. So he
hasn't filed taxes yet for money he made last year, right? So
yes.
No.
So
no protection.
If he filed tax returns this year for money he earned last year, that his sons earned, that his World Liberty Financial, all those people earned and defrauded taxpayers on it, he faces no liability under this agreement you signed.
There's no evidence taxpayers were defrauded, and he is not protected.
There's evidence in this agreement that you've absolved him of any liability over.
No, I just said he's not absolved. So the question
So this agreement doesn't apply to a tax return filed last year or filed this year?
To tax returns filed after the date of the agreement? No,
No, before the agreement. A tax return filed in this calendar year before this agreement.
Before the agreement, it applies, not after.
Okay, so for a tax return filed this year for last year, for the billions he made, there's no tax liability even if he cheats on his taxes or his kids do or his business do. He is absolved of that further potential liability.
No.
Well, it's in the plain language of your agreement. Did you write this language?
You have to use the facts, though. He hasn't filed taxes yet. So when he files taxes, there's no protection based upon this agreement.
Did you write this language?
Did I type it up myself?
Did you write this language?
No.
Well, you put your name to it.
I did.
So who wrote this?
I don't know the person that actually typed it. I don't know who it is.
Was it one of the president's lawyers, or was it someone from the Justice Department or IRS?
This document would have been somebody within the Department of Justice.
Well, you have no idea who that is.
I don't know the name of the person that typed it up.
And did you debate with them the statute of limitations, which clearly would preclude the president's claim, this $10 billion lawsuit?
We had extensive discussions internally about the underlying litigation.
And did you reject the statute of limitations defense?
I'm not a judge. I don't reject
but
things.
You signed an agreement for the U.S.
There was discussion around
you signed an agreement for the U.S. basically indicating that the Justice Department's position that the statute of limitations applies doesn't matter.
I did. That's not what I said. I didn't say that anywhere.
Who rejected the 25 defenses the IRS had to this sham lawsuit? Who rejected them? Who said that these defenses we're not going to accept, we're just going to go with the president's agreement and the slush fund and this immunity?
There was a lot of discussion internally.
But you made the
about
decision.
case. What's the decision? What do you mean?
You made the decision to not defend the IRS and the Justice Department. You made the decision instead to sign this slush fund agreement.
We made the
with
decision to settle the case, correct?
Yeah. And in doing that, you basically decided that you were going to be the lawyer for the president and the lawyer for the IRS and the Justice Department. As the court found in this
No.
case, there was no adversarial relationship.
Yes,
The
there
court found it was a sham, it was a collusive relationship. And what I don't understand, Todd Blanche, what happened to the Todd Blanche who was a prosecutor in the Southern District of New York? What happened to the prosecutor people had respect for? What happened to the prosecutor who once respected the rule of law? What happened to the prosecutor who said that there wouldn't be a whiff of political partisanship and then prosecutes the president's enemies over Seychelles cases, over making a video stating the plain law and Constitution? What happened to the Todd Blanche of the Southern District of New York that could convert him into you, someone willing to say the president has both the right and the duty to prosecute his political enemies? I cannot
never said
imagine
that.
the Todd Blanche of the old days would have ever done that. What happened to you, Todd Blanche? I'll tell you this. I think Robert Caro had it right when he said that power doesn't corrupt as much as it reveals. I suspect it has just revealed who you are. And who you are is someone willing to sacrifice everything you once believed in for that title, for that position of Attorney General. And it is a sad story that we have seen from Trump appointee after appointee after appointee. We have seen people compromise themselves little by little and then a lot by a lot until they're sitting before this committee and trying to justify the unjustifiable. I yield back.
May I just briefly respond, Chairman?
Yes, you may.
Very briefly. So you asked me what happened to Todd Blanche. I am still here. I am the same exact person I was when I was a federal prosecutor in the SDNY, which is do the right thing and do everything you can to keep communities safe. So when I was a line prosecutor, when I was a supervisor, when I was the head of a division, my motivation and my goal was the same thing with the people who worked with me and worked for me, which is do the right thing, enforce the laws, and put bad guys in jail. And so you spend time talking about, I did not interrupt you. I did not interrupt you. A little courtesy would be appropriate. So when you ask me what has changed, okay, and you talk about a single document that I signed, okay, and somebody had to sign that document when the president sued, okay, so I tried to do the right thing. What I do every single day, and what the prosecutors in this country do every single day, and the nearly 100,000 indictments and informations that have been filed since January 20th, is exactly what everybody in this building should want the Department of Justice to do, which is to make our communities safer, enforce the laws, both civilly and criminally, and always do the right thing with integrity, which is exactly what I'm doing. So I am the same Todd Blanche I was when I was a federal prosecutor in the SDNY.
This hearing presents a clear picture of the deep disagreement between Attorney General Todd Blanche and Senator Adam Schiff over conflicts of interest, recusal, and a tax settlement agreement. This documentary is based entirely on the original footage you have just watched. In this final section, one will walk you through, step by step, what happened, what questions were raised, what answers were given, and what the entire exchange reveals. Schiff began by reminding Blanche of his past representation. Blanche had defended President Trump in at least 3 criminal matters: the hush money payments case, the Mar-a-Lago classified documents case, and related proceedings. Schiff asked whether Blanche had consulted ethics lawyer Joseph Tarrell about the apparent conflict of interest. Blanche confirmed that he had met with him and agreed that those 3 cases required his recusal. This first point is straightforward. Blanche himself acknowledged that personal involvement in matters concerning his former client would violate ethical rules. Schiff then turned to the firing of prosecutors. He accused Blanche of taking credit for removing Justice Department personnel who had investigated the president while refusing to admit any conflict of interest. Blanche replied that he was not personally involved, Yet as acting Attorney General, his department had moved to dismiss cases against the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers. Up to this stage, the exchange shows Blanche exercising institutional authority while maintaining that he remained personally free of conflict. The discussion next focused on the special counsel's report. Schiff asked why the report on the Mar-a-Lago documents investigation had not been released to the public. In his view, this constituted an abundant conflict of interest because the report concerned the very client Blanche had previously represented. Blanche repeatedly stated that he was recused, that he had nothing to do with the matter, and that the litigation had taken place while he was still a private citizen representing the president. Schiff pressed further, asking whether anyone had sought Blanche's opinion or guidance on the decision not to release Volume 2. Blanche denied any such involvement. The exchange highlights the tension between a formal claim of recusal and the official position taken by the department under his leadership. Schiff then introduced the most significant document of the hearing, the IRS settlement agreement. He noted that Blanche had placed his name on an agreement that absolves the president of past tax liabilities. The president had already been convicted in a case Blanche had defended him in, a case involving falsification of business records in part for tax purposes. Schiff asked whether the settlement also absolves the president of any liability for tax crimes connected to that conviction. Blanche answered that the matter had not involved the president himself and that you can't be audited for that. Schiff countered that the agreement itself prohibits such an audit and constitutes a staggering example of self-dealing. From this point, the central question of the hearing emerged. Schiff asked directly, does this tax agreement, addendum that you signed, also hold him harmless from any audit or tax liability with respect to the billions in crypto money he made in his first year as president? Blanche replied that no protection exists for tax returns filed by the president, his sons, or the Trump Organization, and that he is not protected. Schiff insisted that the plain language of the document provides exactly that protection. Blanche repeated that the relevant taxes had not yet been filed, and that the agreement therefore offers no such shield. This portion of the exchange leaves open the question of liability for crypto earnings, with Blanche consistently denying that the agreement covers future liability. Schiff next examined the drafting of the document. He asked whether Blanche had written the language. Blanche said he had not typed it himself, but confirmed that he had put his name to it. When asked who had written it, Blanche stated that he did not know the person who actually typed it. Schiff raised the statute of limitations and the 25 defenses the IRS had available, asking who had decided to reject those defenses and accept the president's agreement instead. Blanche answered that extensive internal discussions had taken place. Schiff concluded that Blanche had made the decision not to defend the IRS and the Justice Department, thereby acting simultaneously as lawyer for the president and lawyer for the government. He noted that the court had found no adversarial relationship and had characterized the arrangement as a sham. The final portion of the exchange became personal. Schiff asked what had happened to the Todd Blanche who had been a prosecutor in the Southern District of New York. He argued that power does not so much corrupt as reveal, and that Blanche had sacrificed principles for the title of Attorney General. Blanche replied, "I am still here. I am the same person I was when I was a federal prosecutor." He maintained that his motivation had never changed: to do the right thing, enforce the laws, put bad guys in jail, and act with integrity. This closing confrontation shows Blanche defending his identity while Schiff charges him with compromise. Taken as a whole, the hearing reveals three distinct layers. The first is the ethical and recusal layer. As former counsel, Blanche was required to remain distant from certain matters, yet institutional decisions occurred under his authority. The second layer concerns specific actions, the firings, the decision not to release the report, and the dismissal of the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers cases. The third and most critical layer is the signed tax agreement itself. Schiff treats the agreement as concrete evidence of self-dealing and conflict, especially on the question of crypto earnings. Blanche denies at every point that he acted unethically or that the agreement extends protection to future liability. The questions that remain after the exchange are these. Is a formal recusal sufficient when the department's official position is formed under one's leadership? Does placing one's name on a signed document bind one to its consequences even if one did not draft the language? And most importantly, Does this tax agreement protect the president not only from past liabilities, but also from liability arising from crypto earnings and similar new forms of income? Blanche's answer was consistently no, yet Schiff continued to press the plain language of the document and the court's finding of a non-adversarial relationship. The purpose of this documentary has been to allow the original footage to run continuously, muting it only during narration so that viewers can see for themselves how the questions were asked and how the answers were given. No external facts, no outside news, and no invented quotations have been added. Everything presented comes directly from the source transcript of the hearing. In this ending, I have simply explained that same material, the claims of conflict of interest, the answers on recusal, the scope of the tax settlement, the direct question about crypto liability, and the final personal confrontation. The exchange underscores a larger point. When a former personal counsel becomes attorney general, every decision, whether it concerns firings, the release of a report, or a tax agreement, falls under the shadow of potential conflict. Schiff placed these questions on the record. Blanche denied wrongdoing and defended his integrity. It is now for the audience to judge how complete those answers are and whether the plain language of the signed agreement aligns with the denials offered. This documentary has presented the original confrontation without cuts, without additional storylines, and with nothing beyond the facts and exchanges that occurred in the hearing itself. If you found this analysis useful, please subscribe to the channel for more documentary breakdowns of key political hearings and exchanges.